Imagine coming up with an idea for your employer, being invited to personally submit it for consideration, and then crossing your fingers as you await their response. And they never call. Then, a year later, you see your idea is in newspapers, on public transportation, and billboards all over the city as part of your employer's new branding initiative, all without having received any acknowledgement. What would you do? Follow Charles Ford's journey from his first day of employment to the day he conceived the idea, and how his employer, Consolidated Edison of New York, retaliated against him after his lawsuit over their theft in the gripping, the anatomy of a corporate lynching. See and hear the evidence, testimonies, and all the aftermath in the updated print and audiobook edition, including everything that happened since the first printing.
The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, updated edition, available on Amazon worldwide, and hear the audiobook now available everywhere audiobooks are sold.
I'm Charles Ford, author of The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. Many people have asked me what inspired the title and why did I call it The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. The reason I titled it that way is because it exemplified what my employer was doing, which was to literally lynch me corporately. The way they responded to my raising a concern about what they did and was trying to hide was classic, and I felt it was important to share my experience with the world. By writing the book, I could show the world the lengths that a corporation would go to absolve themselves that I witnessed with my own eyes. I'd been a songwriter and conceptualizer of ideas since I was a teenager. When I began working with the utility company in New York, Con Edison, like any new employee, I was ambitious and was looking forward to learning and applying my skills and talents for the betterment of the company. Once in, I decided to use my writing skills and develop an advertising idea that Con Edison could use. When I solidified an idea, I inquired within the company where and who I should submit the idea for consideration. Company employees told me to take it to the Public Affairs Department. When I contacted the designated member of that department, she told me that she indeed was the person to submit the idea to and invited me to bring the suggestion to her personally. I took my suggestion to her and delivered it to her personally and requested she let me know what she thought of the idea and left.
Just when you thought it was safe to submit an idea to your employer, hold on. Before you do, read The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, updated edition, and avoid the great white sharks. Available on Amazon worldwide, and hear the audiobook featuring a cast of actors delivering the facts on Apple Books, Google Play, and other worldwide sellers.
When I learned that they'd used the idea that I'd submitted without telling me or so much as thanking me, it was surreal. They announced they was about to do a citywide campaign using my idea with no mention about the source of the idea. It was as if I didn't matter. That's the way I was made to feel. And what do you do in a situation like that? I didn't know. But what I did know is that it wasn't going to go unchecked with me being silent about it. Like anyone would feel witnessing the theft of your idea, I was angry. I tried the diplomatic approach by reaching out to the public affairs employee who accepted my submission to find out why she just took my idea and never replied as I requested, to no avail. I then took the matter to her superiors, whose response basically was, "Does this guy have a case or not?" And they assigned an auditor to look into it. The auditor concluded that there was no theft, but off the record, he told me that he did indeed see the similarities in what Con Edison was using to what I submitted. However, for the company's sake, he dismissed my grievance and told me I could pursue justice outside of the company, and I did just that. I filed a lawsuit against Con Edison and went public with it, and immediately they began retaliating. When I would show proof of how a supervisor was lying and making up things to disparage my reputation at work, the supervisor would back down. And then they began denying me training, freezing my pay, and made attempts to railroad me to getting terminated, which is the proverbial corporate lynching the title refers to.
These proceedings are concluded. This court is adjourned. All the shit I did for this motherfucking company.
Before you work for a company, know the company you work for. Read The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, Updated Edition. Available on Amazon worldwide. And now, get the audiobook featuring a cast of actors delivering the facts on Apple Books, Google Play, and other worldwide sellers.
At some point in January of 1999, I was listening to the radio when I heard a Con Edison commercial come over the airwaves. At the end of the commercial, they signed off with their company slogan, "The company you know, the people you trust." I thought to myself, that is so corny. So I began toying around with a slogan of my own for the company. I would toss ideas around until I nailed the idea and finished creating it. I remember when I finally came up with something. I thought to myself, that's it. It was a play on the name Con Edison. I broke the name Edison into 3 syllables and made it Ed is on. And then I prefaced it with a sentence to make it catchy. I would pose a sentence that the Con Edison commercial could say and then follow it with Con Ed is on. For instance, if your cable gets turned off, don't worry, Con Ed is on. I knew my idea was a good one, but there was one problem. I didn't know where to take it. I went on a quest to find out who or what department I should take it to for consideration. At the time, I was a member of the Harlem branch's safety committee. I asked the other members if they could tell me where I could take an idea I had for a new company slogan. I was told that I should take it to someone in the public affairs department named Mary McCartney and given her number. I called Mary McCartney and stated my purpose. "Hello, Miss McCartney. My name is Charles Ford. I work for Con Edison in the meter operations department and am a member of its safety committee. I have an idea I want to submit for a new company slogan, and the members of the committee said that you were the person to submit it to. Is that correct?" "Well, yes, that's great." "Okay, well, how do I go about getting it to you?" I asked, and was surprised by her response. "Well, you can bring it down to me as soon as you're ready." That was even better. I'd get a chance to see the person I was submitting my idea to. I left the envelope with the idea in it with her secretary and then left. The idea letter in the envelope read, "Hello, Miss McCartney. My name is Charles Ford from Meter Operations North. I spoke to you Monday about a tagline I wanted to submit for your consideration to possibly use for the company. Here it is. The phrase or slogan is and can be used as a play on words. It involves Con Edison and the idea, quote, Con Ed is on, and how the thought of Con Edison should permeate the mind. For example, when your electricity is off, Con Ed is on. Or when your utility provider turns you off, Con Ed is on. Or if your cable company disconnects your service, be happy and just think, Con Ed is on. In other words, for everything, Con Ed is on. 1 week went by and I hadn't heard anything from Miss McCartney. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then another safety meeting took place, and a whole month had gone by with still no reply whatsoever from Miss McCartney. One day, I checked my company email and noticed one from the president informing all the employees that the company was changing its corporate brand and logo. I read the entire email and almost fell out of my chair when I got to the bottom where it read, "In every way, Con Edison is on it."
Our new brand also reflects our fundamental commitment to our customers and is our promise and assurance that we are on it. Think of all the ways that Con Edison is on it. In every way, Con Edison is on it.
I couldn't believe what I was reading. I immediately wrote an email to Miss McCartney calling her out for what she did. "Dear Miss McCartney, I just received a letter of high importance from Mr. Eugene McGrath regarding, quote, the new logo type and corporate mark that Con Edison is about to launch as an advertising campaign. I'm not even going to waste time in saying, do you remember me, Miss McCartney? But I will ask you, how could you do something like that?" Miss McCartney didn't reply to my email. I told the local shop stewards in the Bronx and put them on notice. A Con Edison auditor a man named Mark Cashman contacted me on behalf of Con Edison and asked me to come give a statement about my letter and to tell him what happened. I was summoned down to Mr. Cashman's office with a shop steward named Brian Cooper. There, Cashman read us the results of his investigative report, which concluded that the new slogan was the idea of an advertising agency called Arnell. I secretly recorded the conversation that went as follows.
I showed the copy of your letter to Mrs. McCartney, and she took one look and said, "Oh yeah, this is it. I remember the letter," and acknowledged receiving it.
Did Miss McCartney give you a reason as to why she didn't reply to the letter she received from me after inviting me to personally come to her office and submit the idea?
She says she receives a fair number of suggestions from people unsolicited, and it's just not their corporate communications policy to accept them, and that they had the intention of hiring an ad agency to develop a slogan, and they were not going to accept unsolicited suggestions.
Did Miss McCartney tell you why then did she invite me down to submit it? The letter, if she knew she wasn't going to accept unsolicited suggestions?
It was more or less a courtesy, as in, if you want to give something, fine.
Yeah, but if you're coming to me with something and I had no intention of using it, I would let you know.
I agree. That's a good point. The report addresses, did she knowingly or intentionally steal your idea? I don't believe she did. The main idea is, was your idea plagiarized?
So you're saying there's no way that she possibly could have relayed my idea to Arnell?
I'm not saying there's no way she could have. That's why I say there are similarities. I saw similarities in your letter, the presentation that the advertising group gave, and the email from McGrath to all the company employees, and the fact that she's in the middle suggested to me that there could be a possibility that she did knowingly or unknowingly. I spoke with Miss McCartney, and she denies giving them any input as far as words or slogan stuff. The president of Arnell says it's his idea, and that he originally based it on a Marvin Gaye song from 1973 called Let's Get It On.
What date does the source of this idea claim he came up with the idea?
There is no specific date that they can point to.
On the report it says that she told auditing that she read the letter but probably threw it away.
She doesn't remember.
Well, maybe she doesn't remember handing over a file with other suggestions to Arnell.
She says she never handed them any material. I can't tell you with 100% certainty that this is what happened.
Who do I write to within the company to dispute the conclusion of the report?
You can write to anybody. You also have your legal options open to you.
Legal options meaning what?
Well, whatever. You know. You're a citizen. You have legal options as a private citizen. You have every legal right to do whatever you want. Also, I want to emphasize personally that I didn't dismiss your claim. I really do believe there are similarities. I was going to talk to the advertising agency regarding this case, and I told her, Miss McCartney, and she said, "Do you want me to call them for you?" And I said, "No, don't you talk to them." I have to hope that she didn't.
You said that Arnell's president, Peter Arnell, initiated the idea?
That's what the agency said. I did not speak to Peter Arnell. I spoke to a guy who's the account manager who worked on the branding campaign.
Do you know what his name was?
I had it in my papers, but I don't have it here.
Then after a brief pause, he says,
I'm not sure I can give you that information. I'll check my work papers, and I'll see if I'm allowed to give you his name.
When can I expect a call or an email regarding the account manager's name for Arnell?
When I get back to my office, which I suspect will be next week.
Thank you for your time. 2 days later, he emailed me telling me he was unable to reveal the identity of the account manager as I requested. I just needed him to say it in writing, and now I had it in black and white. The next day, I contacted an attorney. Con Edison was served notice that they were being sued for misappropriating my idea, and the following week, I went personally to the media. By this time, it was clear Con Edison wasn't giving any thought to what was done or how I felt. I interviewed with a young reporter named Karen Carrillo, and I left the Amsterdam News office and headed home. The following week, the article hit newsstands in the city. People were now aware of what was going on, and it felt good to expose these people for what they had done. It wasn't long after the article hit newsstands that I noticed management starting to act funny. Management would walk out of an office when I'd walk into a control room or office, and they would send emails to one another about how such a problematic employee I was. I knew that this was part of a smear campaign they were embarking upon to get me tossed out.
Thursday, January 10th. From Johnny Nikes. Subject, coffee at the corner. At 1530 hours on January 10th, Charles Ford was leaving the Hellgate substation with the company car. I called the shift manager to ask for the reason that Charlie Ford was working overtime and what substation he was going to. The shift manager informed me that Charlie Ford was working overtime for some feeders that would be processed back in service later in the day, and that Charlie wanted to step out for a cup of coffee. He left the station with the company car to obtain a cup of coffee, and there's a coffee shop on the corner of Walnut and 135th Street. What do? This is pushing the limit. This person is on final warning.
Ultimately, I decided to share my experience and everything I saw them do against me with the world, so creative people will think twice before sharing an idea with an employer. It's a precautionary story to show people what they can expect for daring to stand up for yourself. In the end, we know ourselves, our aspirations, and our potential, and we want our worth to be seen and acknowledged. But what we don't factor in is that we don't know the intentions of the people we want to approve our good deeds. The experience made me understand the old adage, no good deed goes unpunished. When I was living it, and in the middle of that whole debacle with Con Edison, the last thing I wanted to do was write a book about what they were doing behind the scenes in relation to my case. But on more than one occasion, I was either told I should write a book or asked to write about what happened. So I committed to writing about that whole experience so that others would know how to protect themselves and sort of walk with me through my journey and experience the whole situation in the pages of the book, from when I conceived the idea, how I laid it out and presented it, all the way through the legal phase and the clashes between the attorneys, so that everyone who walks away after reading will walk knowing all the pitfalls to avoid. It's an eye-opener that shows you all the politics and trickery that goes on behind the scenes between companies, unions, judges, and even your fellow co-workers during legal proceedings. It's something you can read before your innocence is lost to an uncaring employer and you end up trusting no one. It was cathartic to write the book, though painful recounting what transpired all over again, but since so many people have expressed appreciation for my writing the book, it's a story that I'm proud to be able to make a difference with for many going forward.
The idea, the submission, the theft, the lawsuit, the retaliation, and the dramatic aftermath. All in the new updated edition in The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. Available on Amazon worldwide. And now, get the audiobook on Apple Books, Google Play, and other worldwide sellers.
Thanks for speaking your truth, pain, and experiences to the world and not holding it in, which can cause major stress to one's health.
His experience was therapeutic and enlightening. Thank you.
I read it in 1 hour. It was a page turner. I couldn't put it down. Loved it.
Being from New York and a black man, this hit close to me. This book brought back my own personal experiences, and I can really relate.
His experience was therapeutic and enlightening.
Thank you for sharing your plight in a system that has not been set up to represent you.
If you're a person that loves to read like myself and gain knowledge about the literature you're reading, this is the book for you. I've learned so much from reading The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. It opened a new outlook on the corporate workplace for me, just when you think you've seen it all.
The updated edition is now available at Barnes & Noble and on Amazon in paperback and Kindle format. And I produced an audiobook version of this updated edition. This updated edition talks about what happened after the first printing came out. It's a true story that I'm happy to have made available for everyone to learn from. I'm Charles Ford.
Imagine coming up with an idea for your employer, being invited to personally submit it for consideration, and then crossing your fingers as you await their response. and they never call. Then, a year later, you see your idea is in newspapers, on public transportation, and billboards all over the city as part of your employer's new branding initiative, all without having received any acknowledgement. What would you do? Follow Charles Ford's journey from his first day of employment to the day he conceived the idea, and how his employer, Consolidated Edison of New York, retaliated against him after his lawsuit over their theft in the gripping The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. See and hear the evidence, testimonies, and all the aftermath in the updated print and audiobook edition, including everything that happened since the first printing.
The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, updated edition, available on Amazon worldwide, and hear the audiobook now available everywhere audiobooks are sold.